Hello, it's John here, and I'm going to go through Championship 2024 predictions. Remember, it is just for fun. It is extremely difficult this year. That some of the sections of the Championship will be very, very flat indeed. There's not such a huge class difference between the top six and the bottom four like it was last year. So we're going to go straight into it. And in 24th position, I have Plymouth Argyle. Now, I'm sorry to put Plymouth Argyle here. I know that they did quite well at the beginning of last season, and when the manager said, "Be careful, fans," Rotherham United were in fourth at this point last year, and they ended up, or the year before, and we ended up just staying up by about a couple of points, and that they could do the same, and they did exactly the same. They did drop to staying up on the last day, so it was very, very close for them. When they sacked their manager and got Paul Rooney in, I remember thinking, this is going to be his. I think this will be his last swan song. He's got to make this work. Will he make it work? I'm not quite sure. I'm one of the ones who sits there thinking, has he got the abilities to get a decent championship side? I think they're a decent bottom of the championship side, a bottom third championship club. Um, they've got some really good players in that team. But even though the side is quite good, and they can stay up, I absolutely believe they can stay up. I just can't look past Paul Rooney. I can't see it working. I I desperately want it to work for the fans because they enjoyed their promotion, they deserved it, and I know what it's like to become a yo-yo side. I don't wish it on anyone else, but sorry, I really have to think that the poorest side in there for mixture of players and manager would be 24th place Plymouth Argyle. So we move into 23rd, and in 23rd, I've got a side that did pretty poorly last year and almost slipped as far as only just staying up on the last day. I think it was pretty um, unlikely that they would go down on the last day, but circumstances kept them up. And in 23rd, I've got Blackburn Rovers. So a poor last year, finishing quite, yeah, I want to say dreadfully, but it wasn't really dreadfully. It was just not very good. Um, Only two decent signings, so not much change here from last year. Schmodix kept them up. Let's face it, Schmodix kept them up. Now I'm worried that if he goes, can they replace him? I've got a feeling that what they're trying to do is that they probably are going to going to lose him, and the fact that it's lingering on is probably down to the fact that they know they've got to replace him. I don't think they've got anyone in there that can replace him at the minute. Assuming that he does go, I don't think they're going to replace him. I think they'll finish in 23rd. If they keep him, it this may change by a little, but I think looking at the teams above, I probably think two or three places higher, perhaps. But in 23rd, I've got Blackburn Rovers. So into 22nd, 22nd, I've got a side that came up from League One. My first side here, and it's Derby County. Of course, Paul Warne managing Derby County, and is used to promotion from League One, quite obviously, with my side. So, can he keep them in the Championship? He's a very good League One manager, an extremely good League One manager. They've been doing some good signings, but from what I can see, they're sort of pretty good League One signings, solid bottom third Championship signings at best. Can they really make the change to a Championship style football? I can't see it happening for two reasons. I think that what they've got is a very good League One side, and at the end of the day, I just can't look past the fact that they have League One players. Yeah, they've made some really good signings, and they are really good League One signings, but I just cannot see past that. And Paul Warne is is a manager who has been in the Championship many years, and he hasn't succeeded in any of them. Not at all. So will he succeed for the first time now? I can't see it. I would be surprised if he's manager by Christmas. If he isn't, then I think that a decent manager may be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat in the January transfer window, because I don't see a big side like Derby not suddenly putting cash into the pot and suddenly making things change. But at the minute, with Paul Warne in charge, I've got in 22nd place Derby County. So into 21st position, I have Oxford United. Now, I put Oxford here because I think that they had a decent side last year, and coming up from League One is always going to be difficult. It's very difficult to get the mid-table championship style players and class players into a side that's just got promoted, because all of the decent players tend to get taken up by the top and middle thirds of the championship, as from the year before. So Oxford have come up and they've had to try and get enough good class players that can keep them up. And let's face it, that's where they have been and have had to try and aim and target their next season in that bottom third. They need to be able to stay up, and they needed to be able to stay up in a pretty decent bottom high end of the bottom third. Have they managed to do it? Well, I think they've had some good signings, and they've also moved on some people that realistically were League One players. And that's a good thing. Moving on the players that they thought, technically, can they play in the Championship? No. Or are they really Championship players or League One players? Well, they're League One players. We'll move them on. So for whatever reason, they've given the cards to players, moved them on for whatever reason, and that I see as a good point. The players they've got in are pretty decent, and I don't really think there's any marquee signing, which is probably what I would be looking for as a fan. I'd be trying to look for that one or those, perhaps one or maybe two marquee signings, and I just don't see that that big push for a guy like a Schmodix to really light up that one part of the field to get the fans really excited. I think Oxford are going to find it really tough next year. There's some excellent top half, top 2/3 teams in there that are going to make it very difficult for them. Can they make it in League One? League One to the Championship? Yeah, they've made it, but can they keep there? I don't know. Can they make that transition? I think they will, and I think they will by literally points here, guys. It might even be goal difference, but I think it's going to be very, very tight at that bottom end. That's why I really don't. When I did this and I looked through the sides at the bottom, I'm thinking, hell, there's a few sides here you could put in the bottom three. So it's very difficult. Didn't want to put them in the bottom three. I don't think they will finish there, but it's going to be very, very tight for them. So in 21st, Oxford United. So in 20th position, I've got my first controversial pick, and in 20th, I have Hull City. Now, I know this is going to be controversial, and I know there's going to be plenty of Hull City fans there saying, you don't know what you're talking about. We nearly got into the promotion slots last year, into the 6th slot, and we can do it again this year. Absolutely, I think you could. Um, but looking at the fact that you've lost most of your best players, Greaves, Tufan, Philogene, uh, and you've lost Rossignol. Now, losing the manager Rossignol, I thought he was absolutely brilliant, and I thought he managed to do a good job at times when it looked like the players just weren't. They just didn't seem to have the heart and soul in Hull City, and I could see little hints that that Rossignol was able to just gel the team at the point where he really needed to. Um, and although at those times they didn't play well, and obviously it was seen sometimes by the fans as being, oh, it's the manager's fault, they're not playing very well. I think it was quite the opposite. I think the players were getting down in the mouth and they needed to win games and they didn't. But the Rossignol was doing a damn good job in stopping them from almost feeling sorry for themselves and getting even playing even worse. So I think the loss of Rossignol will be quite very heavily felt. And if we look at the transfers, they'll be very slow on the transfer market. They're not really. I mean, how do you replace Greaves, Tufan, and Philodine? It's going to be a tough ask. That's why I put in 20th position Hull City. So you move into 19th, and in 19th I've got let's wait, because in 19th I've got a very interesting side. I've seen people vlogging putting this side in the top six, and I've seen them in the bottom six. So there are side people don't seem to be able to really put a which half of the table they're going to finish in. So why do I have such a problem? Because it's a very mid-table side. It's always been mid-table. It probably still will be mid-table, but I've got them in 19th, just edging down that middle third to the bottom of the middle third, and you're thinking, well, why have I got them there? And the reason is, yeah, they are a solid mid-table side, but they need more up front, and they just haven't got it. And they need more supply. Um, they've done great in the goalkeeping department. I mean, yeah, the goalkeeper they got from us is absolutely the Flying Swede is brilliant. He let a load of goals in last season, but when you're at the bottom of the league and have no defence, then he's gonna take a hell of a lot of shots per game, isn't he? Um, Goalkeeping wise, brilliant. They've got great choices now. Defence, I think, is solid. I just don't see where the goals are coming from. I think that they need an improvement up front. Um, in any other year, I would be putting these in mid-table, because just not having anything improving in the sort of midfield supply to attack is not really something that you would drop a team for. But when you look at the teams I've got just above this team, it's easy to see why a mid-table finish last year, if you don't make changes, could actually drop you into 19th place. And in 19th place, I've got Stoke City. Obviously, a standard mid-table side. But hopefully, as you see as I go up the league places, you'll see why I've got Stoke City in 19th, because there are certain sides that were last year better than them that haven't, just are still going to be really good sides and probably still finish above them. And you've got sides you may see being possibly below them who have made a few decent signings and started to edge that likelihood of them finishing higher than Stoke City. So in 19th position, I've got Stoke City. into 18th, and I've got my second controversial side. I go straight in here to tell you it's Sunderland. Now, why have I got Sunderland in 18th? And to be honest, I struggled with this one because I was going to go with the Irish guy and perhaps put an even bigger shock in and put them in 23rd like he did. You see, the owners are they're running the club a lot different than what the managers wanted it to be run. This is why they found it difficult to get a new manager. The manager wanted to run the recruitment, and Sunderland don't want it to work like that. They have their own recruitment department which will run the recruitment, and the manager has to manage the team on the field. So at the end of the day, Sunderland have brought in a rather young manager. Is he out of his depth? I think so. If you look at the manager's history, you're thinking, wow, this is he certainly is out of his depth here. Quite young. Can he do it? The benefit of that is he's got a young squad, and he has got a sort of quite a decent mix of experience in there. There's been a couple going out and a couple coming in. I mean, they've got Bellingham, yeah, and they got Clark. They were both brilliant last year, but can they improve? Well, there's been no incomings really. There's been no incomings, no statement of intent. What I need to see as a fan, if I was a Sunderland fan, is marquee signing or two, something that's going to make me believe that you're actually interested in turning around that poor second half of the season that they had, and I just can't see it working. It's much like my Plymouth position, putting Plymouth in 24th. They should finish higher, and I got Sunderland in 18th. However, they should finish a good 6 or 7 places higher than that. But I just can't see this the mix between the management and the manager and the players working. And I think some of this awkwardness between the owners and previous managers that were supposedly offered the position, it may come to a head even later when this new manager realizes that hey, he hasn't got any control over the players that are coming in, and he's going to be getting players who he has to work with. And for an inexperienced young manager, that could be quite difficult, even extremely difficult. So in 18th position, I've got Sunderland. So in 17th, we start seeing the teams who would have finished last year in mid-table start to come in, because this is a really flat area. This is somewhere where I think probably about 8 positions are quite interchangeable, and I found it difficult to, in this next 8 teams, to really select which ones were going to be above or below each other. So straight in with it. In 17th position, I've got Millwall. Now they had good and bad spells last year, and it's strange because like a few years ago they used to, going to the Den used to be the one place that no team really wanted to go. You were bound to lose. And then a couple of years ago, 2 seasons ago, it was completely the opposite. People were going to the Den and winning. And then we got last year where it was sort of a mixture. They played excellent and absolutely trounced the opposition. And then the next week, they played pretty average at home. And you think, Yeah, it was a reminiscent of Bristol City and the way they seem to always go. You know, they play brilliant one weekend and the fans go home really happy, and then yeah, this is the start of something really good, and then the next weekend, so where the hell did last week go? Because this week was dreadful, and I feel sorry for the fans because it's not very nice to support a side that you don't know if they're going to turn up the next week. But that was last year. So transfers have been quite interesting. I think that let's have a look. I mean, the class of transfer is rather strange. They seem to be gambling a little bit, and they've got League Two's top scorer, but he was top scorer by a country mile. Does it always work out coming from League Two to the Championship? It does sometimes. Yeah, quite. It does sometimes. Um, does it always? No. Will it in this case? I think it might do in this case. But we've just got to wait and see, haven't we? We can't tell until they've played a few games. We won't know what that side is capable of up front. But I think the main thing to me is, yeah, they made some changes. They made some improvements. I think a bit of a gamble, one or two of them. A good bad last year, in equal measures of opposites. I would hope for the fans' sake that it's a little bit more steady this year, and I think they will learn from it. And I think that this middle eight chunk is really where they're going to be. And I think they'd be happy with it, looking at some of the sides that are still got their parachute payments up top. And I think in 17th, we're good to go with Millwall. In 16th, again, one of those middle flat zone teams, Bristol City. And Bristol City they're again a typical mid-table side, and they're bringing in pretty young players. In fact, I the only worry I've got about Bristol City is the fact that these are quite inexperienced players. I don't think it's definitely going to make a difference, but I think that a bit of experience on top of that excellent defence they've got, a little bit of experience may be what they need. If they can bring in a bit of experience, then I think that they could push the top end of this middle eight. Absolutely, absolutely, I do. So Bristol City, I put in 16th. They could go to the top of this sort of middle eight quite easily, and be sort of chomping at the bit for the bottom six, for the top six. Bottom of the top six is what I was going to say. So in 16th, Bristol City. So moving up to 15th, and I've got a team here that, yeah, they played reasonably well last year. They were just too inconsistent to make a push for the top six. Will they make a push for the top six this year? Well, I've got Watford, and they've regularly had an excellent defence. For over the last few seasons, great defence. When they went up to the Premier League, they were regularly getting 0-0s or winning 1-0. You know, it was the defence has been for several years now really, really good, and I'm really impressed by the defence. However, they're just too inconsistent, and I want to. If they were more consistent, I could see them being in the top six. Absolutely, this is a side that should be in the top six because of how they can play. But sometimes they play brilliant, sometimes they play awful. Is what I call the Bristol City effect. They historically have done the same, although now they appear to have stopped that. And you would hope that Watford could stop it and start to play a little bit more consistent. Great defence. I can see a playoff push. but only if they can break this cycle of inconsistency. Um, it's almost like they go to a place and they give someone too much respect, especially when they're playing the top teams, and that's a killer. That's a killer. It gives too much respect to a team, and you give them too much space, and they kill you off. And I think that's partially where this inconsistency came from. So in 15th, I have Watford. Now in 14th, I've got a side that I think this is the highest I've seen them being predicted, to be quite honest. I've got Cardiff City. Now, why have I snuck them slightly higher than most people have been predicting? Um, and it's because they've changed things around on and off field. Certainly off field, they had a really tough time over the last couple of years, and they couldn't spend an awful lot of money. They're trying to change things both on and off field. They've finished that now, I think, and they've really started to turn things around. The manager has made a hell of a lot of difference with this side, even though it's not changed. The side itself hasn't drastically changed. There's no marquee signings. There's no brilliant, absolutely outstanding players in that team. But he seems to get a good song out of them. And I think the only downside to me is that it's an extremely tough start to the season. And Cardiff City have been used to sort of bouncing along just above that bottom 4 or 5, and then flying off into the distance come the end of the year. I think they can stop that bounce effect that they keep having, and I think they will. And I think this year they're going to learn from their mistakes last year and the year before, because they're going to have a little bit more better use of the abilities of the squad. Let's just say that, because I think the abilities haven't changed. The squad hasn't really changed, but the management has, and that manager can get a song out of this team. Absolutely. I have confidence in Cardiff City manager. That's why I have gone for Cardiff City in 14th. In 13th, and the last team to be in the bottom half of the table, we've got Preston North End. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is that Preston have been steadily improving every year on, year out. The quality of that side has been improving. So looking at the transfers, there's been no real improvement to this squad, and I don't expect it to do, because what they've built here is a team that can slowly improve. The team they've got is really good in all quarters, and they've been steadily improving it. If they do need a player that's a little bit better than what they've got, they'll improve him. And it's a good, and importantly, a stable squad, and and I think that stability will and can only get better over the next couple of seasons. I've got them in 13th. Could they push for a top 6? They might push for a top 6. I think it's unlikely, but yeah, this side could do it. Will they do it? Unlikely, but I think they may do. So in 13th, I have Preston North End. In 12th, I have the other South Wales side, Swansea City. Swansea City, well, Duff didn't work, did he? So that didn't quite work out. So now they've got a nice young side, a mix, I suppose. But it's a very capable side. They've lost 1 or 2 players that I would have preferred as a fan to have kept, but I think on the whole they've managed to keep a decent mid-table side. I wouldn't say it's improved. I wouldn't say it's improved. Um, I, I just can't see them massively getting out of that this middle eight, um, this middle eight group of really flat teams points wise. So that's about all I can say. Swansea City, 12th position. So in the 11th position, I've got a team that should have been dead and buried. And they were certainly dead and buried by Christmas. 24th, out of the picture. Then they changed manager. Ouch. The manager just seems to be able to get a song out of players who he really shouldn't be getting a song out of, to be quite honest. How on earth he does it, I don't know. How he did it, I don't know. And that leads me on to what they've done over the summer transfer window. They got rid of the dead wood, and some of these were actually the ones that were very capable last year of turning a game that they could quite easily get a win or a draw from out of into a defeat or a draw. And it just makes me think that manager has not only the abilities to get a song out of average championship players or average bottom half champion. In 10th, I've got a team that only just scraped it into that top 6 position, didn't they? I mean, Norwich City. I was touting them to be to finish 7th, and I really didn't see them staying in that 6th slot. Bouncing around with West Brom, and I'm thinking they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. And there were some games where they just played pretty average, and I just couldn't see how they were really getting away with it. Yeah, I mean that the fact that they just stayed up in the playoffs, and then in the playoffs they just didn't turn up. That wasn't a championship team. It was. I thought that was probably one of their most average stroke below average games. They do have good players, and they can actually play good football. And there has been changes to the team, but not not huge changes. You know, there's no marquee signings. There's no huge players leaving, huge players coming in that make any difference at any rate. So realistically, I should be bouncing around sort of 5th, 6th, 7th position. But there are some damn good teams coming in the next few slots. And I just think that the improvements to the teams in 1st to 9th are going to be enough to just edge them out of that top 6. So in 10th place, I have Norwich City. In 9th place, I've got a team coming up from League One. And will they do an Ipswich? Not quite. I think Portsmouth. I think Portsmouth will be, and they were my want to watch, guys. If you want to watch my want to watch video, I did say want to watch Portsmouth, and I'm looking at the Portsmouth squad, and I'm thinking they got a good side. They had a good side last year. They've got rid of a lot of the older squad. I mean, Raggett and Rafferty went to Rotherham, but they're what, 32 years old. They've tried to lower the age of their squad, get rid of some of the older players. Now, yeah, players like that were really good in League One. Would they make it in the Championship? I just can't see it. I mean, Rotherham know what it's like to have brilliant players in League One, and as soon as we go up into the Championship, we're in either 23rd or 24th position and getting relegated. So Why do I think it's going to be different for Portsmouth? Because they got rid of them. They got rid of some of these players that they think, okay, they're really good in League One. Let's get rid of them. Let's try and replace them with some quality players. And I think they have replaced them with quality. They haven't replaced them with marquee signings, no, and I keep mentioning the word, but fans like a bit of a marquee signing. It gets them enthused, it gets them support, and excited for the new year. And the buzz goes around the players and the team. Okay, we don't have that, but they are good signings. I think the management is good, stable. I think the club is good, stable. A lot of teams do badly, especially in the Championship, by what happens off field, which is possibly why Cardiff's did rather badly 2 and 3 years ago and hovered above the relegation zone, because things that were happening off field were starting to come onto the pitch. So I think Portsmouth, again, this is another one like Sheffield Wednesday. It's probably the highest I would see them, but in 9th position I have Portsmouth. 8th position, I've got a team that in the last third of the season last year were phenomenal, weren't they? You hated playing QPR last season if it was in the last third of the season. They were absolutely amazing. They were playing like men possessed. The new manager made such a difference. And we've had some really good managerial changes last season. We really have. We've also had some really poor ones, Rotherham's included. So QPR in 8th, just missing out on that 6th place, but don't be surprised if they sneak up even as high as 5th place. This could be a team that could easily be somewhere, because we're now out of that mid 8 teams that are going to be pretty much within about 2 or 3 points of each other, and we're pushing into the top 8, and you're thinking, wow, this top third is going to be pretty tight as well, but it's probably going to be slightly ahead of the middle 8. QPR, yeah, I could see them in anywhere between 5th and 8th position. Probably put them a little bit low is my general thought. They've certainly done some good business, and they've been really selective about what business they've done. They've been really canny about their transfers. They've also had some good departures, and they've made sure that the ones they've lost can either be replaced or won't be noticed. Have they improved from last year? Absolutely. They've improved from last year, and at the end of last year they were pretty damn good. So in 8th position, possibly a little higher, I've got QPR. So in 7th position, and just missing out on that playoff position, as they did last year, I've got Middlesbrough. Why have I put them in exactly the same position? Because they have I think improved. Not a great deal, probably not enough. Latte Lat will be essential. If he can keep on firing them in, then I think, they will certainly be there or thereabouts, pushing for that bottom end of the top 6. I think with these, what I want to see if I was a fan, I'd want to see more supply. I think that the Latte Lat and the strikers are really good, but I want to see more supply from midfield. I want to see Barlasser pushing through and providing the strikers with the chances to score goals, because he used to be able to do that at Rotherham. So it needs to be. They need more players like that who are performing and being able to push it into that to provide opportunities for the strikers. That's what I want to see from Borough. If they can do that, then I think that they could certainly be somewhere in that 3rd, 4th, 5th sector. But at the minute, I've just got too many teams above them that are, really doing quite well. Did quite well last year, and I don't see them doing too badly this year. So in 7th position, I have Middlesbrough. In 6th position, it's one of the two teams that are playing well, who 2 years ago played on a budget. It tells you who the other one is, doesn't it? So 2 years ago they both played on a budget. This team in particular. Last year this team played on a budget. I think it had the lowest budget in the league, even below Rotherham. And it's Coventry. So Coventry, managed by an outstanding manager. Used to play for Rotherham, and he's been able to. Mark Robins has been able to do some pretty good tactical changes in the middle of games. He's not afraid to change things round, but he doesn't make changes just for the sake of changing, which is, I think, one of his traits. He likes to make sure he knows what he's doing and plans things to make sure that it's done at the right time within a game. So he's a good tactician. I mean, last year, they're way better than what people thought, way better than what I thought, and I think they will be doing it the same again this year. So we've got Coventry City. What have we got coming in? Transfers have been good. Rudoni coming in, I mean that could be quite critical to them. I think Rudoni could be the one that I'm going to be looking at and see, well, is he going to make a shining light in that team? Because they're already pretty good as a whole unit. They're so well gelled. They have got ins and outs, and but the players that they've had to let go, they've covered them really well, or they already were covered really well. So there's been no gaps created by what's left the team. So I'm quite happy to be putting Coventry City in 6th position. So in 5th, I've got a team certainly not on a budget. It's West Brom. Again, they were pretty much bouncing around that sort of 5th, 6th, 7th slot last year, and sort of just almost not being in the top 6 and almost just staying in it. But in the end they did, and I don't think they did too badly in the playoffs. They just didn't have that oomph that the others had. Last year, like I say, a lot of people thought they would do a lot worse because they didn't. I remember doing a prediction video. I said, well, they're the only team in the Championship at the time not to have had any signings whatsoever. And with all the other teams improving, I couldn't see them being in the top half. And yet they did absolutely brilliantly. So the manager's done a damn good job. And Corberan is staying as manager. It's going to be really good. The Deadwood's been cleared out. There's been some good signings. I think it's going to be a good year for them. Could they push higher? Well, if you look at the teams I've got above them, then there's probably only, I think they could get 1 or 2 places higher. But I think the teams above are really pressing to force themselves into a section of super teams. Can they get into that? I don't think they can, but there again, I said they were going to have a poor season last year, and look how wrong I got that one. So I'm going to say in 5th position, West Brom. So in 4th position, I've got a team coming down from the Premier League. So they had the 3rd worst score in the Premier League. They have made enough transfers, but they're all Championship quality. And from what I think, they're sort of mid-stroke upper half of the Championship in quality. At most people look at Sheffield United and think, oh, if I was looking at a standard Premier League team dropping into the Championship, we'd be thinking, yeah, but they've got a massive squad and it's all Premier League quality. You know, you can have a poor Premier League side and they'll trounce any Championship side, and they've got the parachute payments. They're bound to be in the top six. But Sheffield United were the third worst scorers in the Premier League. And you have to look at the quality of their players. It wasn't brilliant. Coming down, they have, I think, a top half Championship team. And their transfers are top half Championship. I don't see any massive change from last year. If anything, from last year, I would say they've sort of stayed on a par, or with the transfers, possibly even slightly reduced their abilities. So I have to think. I'm putting them higher than a lot of people. Some people, excuse me, I've got a cold. Some people have put Sheffield United. Where is it? I've got a few lists here. Somebody put them in 18th position. So you can imagine there's a lot of people out there thinking that rule of a team dropping down from the Premier League and having loads and loads of Premier League players just doesn't fit Sheffield United, and the ones that are any good will disappear, which weren't very many, and they're going to be left with Championship players, and they bought in transfers from Championship players. I think I'm being quite nice to them. I'm putting Sheffield United in 4th position. In 3rd place, I've got another team just dropped out of the Premier League last year. Damn good squad. They nearly made it, I think. They really could have done, I think. However, Burnley in 3rd. I've got, Scott Parker is now manager. I mean, let's face it, their manager was everything, wasn't it? I mean, he did such an amazing job. He was going to go. There was no way that they were going to be able to keep hold of him. And it was really, it's sad, because when you have such a brilliant manager that they had, to know that you're going to have to lose him because he's just brilliant. Who on earth do you replace him by? Well, they've replaced him by Scott Parker. I think he's got a damn good Premiership quality class side, because I think they nearly did stay in there. They really did, and they tried their best. They played some damn good football. I think putting them in 3rd is possibly. I think it's going to either be 3rd or 2nd. I chose 3rd. They could easily make 2nd. So, good Premier League, Premiership, Premier League side. I keep putting in the word Premiership, and you guys keep complaining that I say it, but I just keep slipping. Sorry. Premier League side, and Premier League class players. Don't slap me on the hand again, please. I've got Burnley in 3rd. In 2nd, and the first of the 2 automatic promotion slots, I've got Luton Town. This is the side I was mentioning, that this is the other side that have always played on a budget. They're absolutely amazing. They went up on such a low budget. God knows how they did it. Their entire management. But if you start talking about Luton Town, you have to talk about management being everyone, including the financial management and the finance director, and the team manager. And I think Luton Town just have that ability to bounce back. It's their first relegation in 15 years. Do you realise that? I can't believe it. They've got some outgoings, and they've got plenty of them, but they've got such a decent squad from that Premier League, say the right word, that I don't see them being reduced in quality enough, together with that parachute payment, to make any difference. yeah, I think a Premiership quality side should be looking at that top three. I think they will finish in the top three. I've got in second position Luton Town. And in first, we have the winners of the Championship, champions of the Championship. We have Leeds United. What can I say? This is a team that were actually doing quite well in the Premier League. And, you know, and when they came down, I was quite shocked. Last year, what did they do in the playoff? I mean, what did they do in the playoffs? They just didn't turn up. They didn't turn up. I was utterly stunned by how average they played. I didn't think the tactics were good. I didn't think they played very brilliantly. I thought they played okay, but I didn't. There were moments when they played really well, but it was too late in the game. Archie Gray left for Tottenham, but they've still got a good squad, and I think it's still Premier League class. I keep wanting to say the other word, and I think they'll do it this year, and I think they'll be champions. I think teams that I've got below them, the Luton, Burnley, Sheffield United, just don't have the edge to beat them over a 46 game period, and that's the key, the 46 game period, because last time their entire season was a 90-minute period and they just fluffed it in that 90 minutes. This time I think it's going to be a not as close a call, and it's over 46 games. So in first place, champions of the league, we have Leeds United.